Hey everyone, Chris here with another filler video. Now, what I want to talk about today is... Wait a minute, didn't we go HD? Anyway, what I want to talk about today are these two CDRs right here. Now these are pretty ancient, as you can see. It's like maximum 6x burn speed. Same with this one, even though it doesn't say it on the cover. But anyways, the importance of these is that the very first two CDRs I ever burned, it was in high school in the late 90s, and they contain 3D animations that I put together as a school project. You're in for some really retro 3D ray trace stuff right now. But here's the thing, is that there's really not a lot to it. There's technically 8 animations in total, and these are not like things that you could make easily nowadays. I was using like some consumer level program. It was licensed through Corel. It was something called like Ray Dream 3D or something like that. It was really basic. Like, I was working on 100 megahertz computers. You couldn't really see what the result was going to be ahead of time because it took so long to render anything. So we're talking really primitive stuff here. But in any case, these animations, I've had them for a while now. I don't think anyone outside of that high school has really ever seen them. So this is the first time they're going to be online, and you're going to see they're really, really primitive. Let's get started. So I said technically 8 of them. This first one here is really supposed to be just a title thing. It's not even numbered in my, because they're all numbered in the file names. This one doesn't even have a number. But it's basically just a title sequence animation with, there's the title right there, the Computer Animation Collection. Not that it was impressive for a name like, it's just a red title anyways. But I thought that like going through the vertical parts of the title would be kind of fun or something, but no, it really isn't. And again, this is something I couldn't really tell ahead of time because I'm working without hardware accelerated graphics on really slow systems with like so little memory. I couldn't know what this was going to turn out as ahead of time. So I just had to render it and hope for the best. So this is the actual first animation, like completed animation that I made with this software. It's actually got a lot to it, surprisingly. It uses a lathe technique for the lamp and the diamond. I couldn't figure out how to make the diamond faceted with the lathe tool. It was like so little you could do with this software. So, and then you had the ball bounce up on the table and knock the diamond over, and then these little cubes that sort of fly off with this sort of ray tracing, mirroring, translucency effect. I thought it looked cool when I did a sort of screenshot of it, and so I just had them fly by to see what that was going to look like. So this is the kind of level we're working with here because of how little this software could do. But I've actually done sort of a remake of this animation much later on using more advanced 3D software that I have. If I can find it, I'll post it at the end of this video as sort of like a little extra. But fair warning, I did it on a computer that I don't have access to right now. So I have no idea if I ever copied it to anything that I have access to. So if I can't get it, then it won't be at the end of the video. Now this next one, I was trying to go for like this battle sequence. And something I noticed with this particular software that I was using is the way it did the animations is it kind of morphed the mesh objects from one state to another with this sort of morphing algorithm. So you could take an object with X number of polygons and morph it into something with a different Y number of polygons. So that's how I was able to do that sort of crosshair morph at the beginning so easily, is because the software for some reason was designed to be able to do stuff like that. But in any case, this whole sequence is just basically trying to fire lasers at an opponent tank sort of thing. It kind of has one glaring oddity in that you can sort of see the camera object inside the tank that's looking through the first-person view through the crosshair and everything. It's kind of weird that that happens, Well, it's just kind of weird that this software was rendering the physical form of these objects, which are only supposed to be generating like light or camera views or stuff like that. Like, that doesn't happen in most 3D software. In fact, I don't think it happens in any 3D software. So, and other than that, it was just like a sort of basic battle sequence. The laser effect in this sequence, it's not supposed to go out the backside of the pylons of these ships. So this, like, it's something that is lost in the translation between what I was seeing while developing this animation versus what was actually rendered, because there was a strong disconnect between the two. So whenever you're doing effects like that, you sometimes just had to sort of guess and hope that it turned out well. I put a lot more work into this one than I really should have. I basically wanted to take full advantage of this morphing technique that this program was doing and make it do like a sort of life algorithm demonstration. But then I kind of got a little creative with the camera motion. I thought it would look cool, but it just looks really dumb, really. This is not, even when I did this animation back as a teenager, I looked at the final render and I'm like, no. But I gave it a shot anyways, and it has this really long lighting transition effect at the end, which, yeah, this is by far the worst one in this whole set. Ironically, the very next one I did, I consider to be one of the better ones of this whole set, because it's a race. It's a race between these 6 different colored pods that are going through this track. Now, there's actually a lot going on in this race, but there's only one camera. So I had to sort of sacrifice some of the visuals of what's going on here, but you can tell from just watching this, the blue pod is going like a bat out of hell. It's going real freaking fast, but that's its downfall because it just races right off the edge of the course. And then you got, which one was it? I'm looking at the screen to remind me what the colors of everything was. The red one is the one that gets bumped off right at the start because he kind of screwed up his cornering. The yellow one gets spun out because one of the opponents just sort of races by him and he just spins right off the track. The cyan one doesn't quite make a turn properly and just sort of edges off. Like, I thought that was cool when I did that one. And the green one was the one that makes it through the course very well, but then there was the purple one. And right from the start, I had the idea, the purple one is just going to take it nice and slow. He's going to make it past the finish line no matter how many of his opponents get knocked out. He gets second place. So maybe being slow isn't such a bad thing. Before I forget to, one of the things that doesn't show up very well, and because of the way the camera's going, is that the green pod in this race is actually having problems staying... Damn it, there's a train passing by. The green one is actually having problems staying on the course, yet somehow manages to get through everything. It's not conveyed very well because of the way the camera's moving, but if you look closely, you can see this happening. Oh, the archery. This one, I swear, the entire reason I made this one was twofold. One, I didn't want a black background. That literally was the first reason. The second reason was because I wanted to try something a little more dynamic, so to speak. I had this bow model that had this string on it, but the string was made of 2 pieces, and so that way it could like bend backwards as it was going. But yeah, bend backwards like that. The problem is another disconnect between what I was seeing in the editor versus what was actually being rendered. So there's this sort of gap between where they join up. When I was editing it, no gap. So, consumer level 3D software in the late 90s. What do you expect? But I thought doing an archery thing would be cool anyways, because then I could have him like fire off these arrows, and the last arrow was fired from like further back, and then I had it do a sort of follow on the arrow. But now here's the trick, is that the software I was using, it had an option to follow an object as it was passing by. So you could like focus the camera to point at an object, but you couldn't animate that. So what I had to do was sort of step it along and then sort of set the camera point and then just hope that as the camera is going through these points that I set, that it's managing to keep up with the arrow. That's why it has that sort of jerkiness when it's following the arrow at the end, is because the camera couldn't automatically track an object over the course of the animation. I had to set keyframes to do that, and then it would just swipe the camera across those keyframes. I'll be honest, at this point, I was running out of ideas. So I was like, let's just make the editor. Make the editor in 3D. But you know, here's the funny thing, is here another example of a disconnect, because when I was actually doing these line effects in the software, the lines were showing up gradually as it was coming out of the surface. Like, it's similar to Z buffering effects that you would see in a 3D game, where if two polygons meet up with each other, you don't see both polygons in fully rendered like you would in really old 3D software that didn't do Z buffering. Instead, they would sort of clip into each other where they meet. But depending on the depth of your Z buffer and how it's being handled, you might see this sort of sawtooth artifacting going on. Well, with proper 3D software, at least nowadays, it perfectly meshes that up at those edges. This software clearly didn't. So that's why the lines just appear out of nowhere. But it was still a neat idea to just have it so that it was like a 3D drawing program with all these toolboxes and everything, and you got the tools doing their thing. Even the arrow pointer has its own little thing where it like stretches the line to make it a box. By this point, I was actually running out of time. So this particular animation, I had a lot more planned for it, but when I realized how long it was going to take to put it together and the fact that I still had to render all of these and put them onto a CD, I kind of realized I wasn't going to have enough time to do this grandiose sequence. So I just had them all fire off a few lasers and game over. In fact, I remember distinctly, I had literally 3 more days of school left when I had this all rendered to CD and ready to hand in. So I was pushing the edge for getting this project done. But I did get it done, and it got me lots of marks on my technology course. The funny thing is that this was actually the second project I did during the year. The first project was a VHS tape full of fractal animations. Because earlier on I was saying I wanted to do some fractal animations for a filler video, and I ran out of time for doing that. I actually had done that before, and I still have the VHS tape. It's in storage somewhere. But that was my first project of the year, and then I was sort of, well, what do I do after this? 3D animations. Why not? So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Again, if I can find the remake I did of the first animation, I'll post it after this part. Otherwise, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you'll continue to watch for the next few episodes of Ancient DOS games and everything. Well, more than the next few episodes, of course. But as for the hint for the next episode, all I gotta say is boomerang knife. If that's not enough, I don't know what is. So make sure you send your guess to adg@pixelships.com, and stay tuned because I'm pretty sure, yeah, all of you are going to know what that game that is. You better send in your guess quickly. Thanks for watching, everyone, and special thanks to everyone supporting me on Patreon. Here's a small random set of you guys.